Hello, this is Teresa with Lake Grove Art Literacy, and I'm here to teach the lesson, demo the art project for the unit in January 2026 about Korean Minhwa. Happy New Year! We're here there's a whole lesson. You can see that on the website. I encourage you to watch the video ahead of time so you understand what we're working through. Essentially, it's a style of art that is not a particular artist, but done typically by anonymous artists in Korea during a certain era, the Joseon era, and this is all about functional symbolic items that bring luck, and it's really, the term Minhwa means painting of the people or popular painting, and it was quite prevalent in this certain era. You can read all about it. I'm going to mostly focus, or you can watch the video all about it. I'm going to mostly focus this video on how to do the project, so we can just get through that kind of quickly, and then you can, of course, teach the lesson in the class with a lot of examples for inspiration and watch the video, and that will be very helpful. So what we're going to do today is a fan. A lot of the Minhwa work is functional art that hung in doorways or, in hallways, in homes, but also some things, screens and fans and things like that. And so that's what we're going to create. I'll note right away, it's pretty, it's very, very subtle painting. We're going to use watercolor pencils. Should be not as messy as actual watercolors, but it does require a little bit of working, especially with these particular materials. So I'm going to walk you through that. Note also that the front has a picture and the back does not. And there will be some assembly required by the parent volunteers just to get it into the fan format. So here's a few examples. Typical of the Minhwa style is doing things that are legends, mythical creatures, nature. So there's a lot of things for inspiration that we've provided. There's different pictures here that we will provide. One of the things also that's really fun to note for the kids is that Derpy Tiger from K-pop Demon Hunters is actually inspired by the Minhwa style. It's a Korean, this is, I believe, actually based on a mythical creature or a legend, but the style of it is done in the Minhwa style. So I kind of did this example to show that. We'll have a couple of those on the cart. This is a little bit detailed, so I'm going to go through a really simple one because this is the same lesson for third through fifth and K through second. And then if you want to do a more complicated one, I have a few tips for that at the end. So what you're going to need for this project are each piece of, you'll need the fan pieces. Each fan piece comes essentially in two parts. Each kid's gonna need one of each. We're gonna have these pre-assembled with the handle. This is some sticky tape that will help you assemble it after. The important thing to note is that these have two sides, kind of a shiny side. It's a little hard to tell, but here's the shiny side on this one, and this is the rough side. They want to draw on the rough side. So make sure that everyone has the side that feels like regular paper, not the side that is kind of smooth. And if you get stuck and aren't sure which is which, the ones that are assembled have the rough side on the exposed outer edge and the inside is smooth. But each kid gets one of these, and the reason is one of each, but they're gonna draw and paint on this separate piece because the stick just makes it too hard to draw and paint. So each kid gets one of these. You're also gonna have, similar to some previous lessons, a whole lot of colors, but you'll have to share them because we do have quite a lot of these. These are watercolor pencils. They must be these watercolor pencils. You cannot use regular colored pencils. You'll see why. There's like pigment in these and it gets activated by water. But we'll pass out, this will be in different containers, easier to pass out to the kids. Everyone gets, so we'll just put all these things here. We're going to paint with Q-tips, not brushes, because the brushes just leave too much water on the fan, and you notice that the fans are not actually watercolor paper, so you have to be really careful. That's one of the gotchas. You have to be careful not to apply too much water or you'll end up with something that curls, which is okay. It's just a little harder to assemble. Because these wear down quite a lot, we've got a lot of, and they can break. They're kind of fragile, so please do not drop these if you can avoid it. But we also have pencil sharpeners that we'll include on every cart. Kids will need a pencil and then glue stick. This is for the assembly by the volunteers at the end, or the older kids might be able to assemble them themselves. We'll also have tape, which is part of assembly, but this isn't required. This is kind of a backup in case something goes wrong with the glue. Okay, so the first step is they have to put their name on things. And it might be a good idea to put the name on both things, but honestly, I think the easiest thing to do is the one with the pencil, or sorry, the one with the handle. Take the pencil and write the kid's name. So there's going to be name, or they have them each write their name. So name, and then teacher or room number. That's just so that you can remember whose is whose, because if you write it on the inside, which is the tempting part, it'll get covered up and we won't be able to tell whose is whose. If you wanted to, you could write, I suppose, on the handle the name and the teacher, which would then leave the back blank if they run out of things to do. If they finish this early and they want to do a thing on the back, they could. It's just going to be a lot harder to draw on the back, so we kind of, that could happen. But I think the key is that they put their name on this so we know where to find it. And then this one, if you want them to, they could write their name, but I think we're gonna, if you're assembling them in the classroom, which we're asking you to do, that shouldn't be necessary. So then they take this flat one and take some inspiration. They can just draw whatever they want. Try to keep it inspired. You'll see in the lesson, it's all about art that is inspired by nature and magical creatures, which is really fun. But there's a lot of things that you can do from inspiration. So here's an example of something that was inspired by this drawing, this clip art kind of drawing. I showed the tiger. There's also things where you just take elements, like this one just has, you know, some natural elements that are invented by the kid. So any of that's fine. I'm gonna do one that's pretty simple that is based on a dragonfly. So I just have that as a reference kind of here, and then you pick some colors from here. And maybe I will do this kind of a dragonfly. So what the most important thing in the lesson is you don't fill in everything. It says in the video to not fill in everything. So you just kind of start by drawing the outline. And you don't draw, at least not right away. They say not to fill it in, but I have notes on that for how to make these work a little bit better. But you don't fill it in right away. You just draw the outline in the color that you want to use, though. So you're not using your regular pencil. This is set aside. You're just using these. And you kind of do, once you get something you like, you can have them draw over it more solidly. The video shows just very tentative, like very basic lines. I believe you're going to need a little bit more than that, but for now we can just do the basic lines. So here's going to be the head and the body, and I'm just using this as a reference, this one here. But so if they get stuck, they can, you know, you can't trace it through this paper, but you can copy it pretty specifically. But they can do whatever they want. It really is mostly about having fun. It's not serious. Everything's fine. So you can draw these kind of lines in here. Obviously this does not take that long. The next thing you can do if you want is you can draw in some extra details. Like you'll notice in the video, they do a lot of like grasses and things like that. That's kind of a good idea. You can also kind of add this all over the place. You can do different colors of grass. You could maybe add like a flower. Sorry, it's gonna be hard to see. I'll do this one. I don't know what that is, but that's fine. Just some interest. So that's really it. It's just kind of like this. You can leave it just like this and then they can start painting. But I will show some tips because the painting is the tricky part. If they fill stuff in, it's not a big deal because that's actually might be helpful. There's some frustration ahead though if you might need to help some kids with this little detailed part. Also, when you're composing the piece, again, on the rough side, and try to have them fill the space. They can go off the edge or whatever, or they can center it. But if it's really small, it's going to be a lot harder to work with. So try to make it kind of big. There will be water dishes, so the volunteers will need to give out, they say 3 to 5. That's probably about right. of these for each kid. You can just, we'll have a lot, you can pass them out. And then a water dish will need to be filled up for at least kids to share, or each kid can have one. Okay, so then you just kind of dip this in the water, and then notice how this works. So you kind of dab along the edge of the painting, of the, sorry, the drawn part, and then you kind of pull that out. So it's very subtle. Let me see if I can make this closer. So you can kind of see it starts to activate into a sort of watercolor paint. The thing is that I've found challenging working on this is that as soon as you add water to it, the line goes away. You lose that definition of the edge. And a lot of paintings have a more defined edge in this style, and honestly in most styles. You can certainly just go along and get the same color paint or color brush, pencil, and add that back in. That's no big deal. So you might want to keep those around and do that. That's one way to do it, to get a little more color. But also just trust the process, because honestly, even this one, I did some coloring in at the end, but this one I really didn't add that much after. And you can kind of end up with, it's supposed to be kind of subtle, I guess is what I'm saying. So you just do this. I think another challenging part is where they instruct to have things overlap. That's kind of tricky with watercolor because you have to plan it out. So again, you can kind of like, if we can move, oh, quick tip, definitely move to a different color because it will hold the color. So this is blue. I'm using this end for the green. Definitely call that out to the students. And you can kind of see how it just gets a little smeary. So if they're wanting more definition, they'll have to go in and add that again later, basically. I'll show you another tip for what can help if you want much brighter color. You can fill it in a little bit. It says not to, but if you just shade, you don't have to do really dark, but if you just shade it like this, and then new tip because it's a new color, you get more color saturation, and that's just a little bit easier to work with because you see like my whole little face just disappeared. So I would encourage, don't use too much water, and then let it dry a little bit. And once it's dry, you can go back in and you can add more definition. See, that green kind of just disappeared entirely. Some of the colors are a little stronger than others. They can also certainly just leave spots not painted, but that's not really the intent. The intent is that it all has this kind of soft, faded look. So it's better if, especially since they'll have the time. This one's not as crunched as the last one was. The Frida Kahlo one was pretty tight on time. This one should be pretty good, pretty easy to get done. Okay, so something like that. Looking a little bit bare, so maybe there's some things to do here, more interesting things, pulling more colors in. Maybe there's a big leaf over here of some kind. You see this one's mixed, and mixed two colors. And so they can get creative if they want, things like that too. The thing that could be frustrating for kids who are a little more, I don't know, fastidious about what they're doing is it is not very precise. So you can see it's kind of gets a little bit sloppy and blurry. That's just the style of using these kinds of pencils. So it's just gonna be like that. If they want to kind of be more precise, we thought about including brushes, but it really just makes the paper way too saturated. So you just have to, I think the thing, if they want more precision, I'll show you on the tiger one, or an example like that, is that you would want to do lots of layers. So you start by building a base and then you draw on top of it. So there you go. If you want those lines to come back, for instance, you can just bring them back in. But there's an example. And then I'll show you how to assemble real quick. So you will have, like I said, this piece. Every kid will have this piece. They have their name on the back. This is a little bit tricky, so we're gonna have the adults try to help with this. You peel this off. This can be kind of annoying to get off, but it's double-sided tape. You can kind of see it shining there. If that somehow fails, you can always do, you know, it's a little bit tricky actually. I think you should try to make it work. If it starts to come off for some reason, you can use a tape, but you're not gonna be able to attach as easily this. So I suggest doing that. Again, this is the back. Kind of line it up. And then you'll need to get the glue stick for this part. Because it's two shiny sides, it can be a little bit, like it gives up a little bit easily. So you need kind of a lot of glue. I suggest doing one side, pressing that pretty well and holding it, and then doing the other. That. And that should work pretty well. Some of them might be a little curled up. If they're curled up, no big deal. I'll show you with this one. But you see, if you use a lot of water to fill in this whole area, like this one did, it can kind of curl on you. So again, just kind of peel this off. It's not pivotal as long as the glue on the outside is great that that's done, but it makes it a lot stronger if they actually use it as a fan. And that helps you line it up. So you see that's got a pretty big curl, but if you just use a lot of glue around the edge, just has to be the edge, and hold it down, it should stick. I'm pressing kind of hard. And if it starts to come up like this one, that's not a big deal, but you can always kind of peel it up and add some more. Just do the best you can. Hopefully it'll stick enough. That double-sided tape is going to help keep them together in case the glue fails a little bit. And then we'll have some volunteers maybe help with that a little bit. So this one should have on the back. Just double check before they leave that they have their name on the back. And the teacher or the room number, so we can get them sorted. Cool, that's it. I'm gonna add, just since I'm here, if you wanna do something more complex, like say a dragon, where did that one go? Or a crane, let's do a crane. You can do a little bit more. If you need to go, you don't have to stay for this, but if you want to see a little bit of a detail here, so let's just kind of copy this. Kind of works. It's a little bit of a derpy crane. So you can see here, I'm trying to do some things like maybe I want these feathers to be darker. If you really want that contrast, I suggest you fill it in a little bit. An example would be this eye, fill that in. But there is something going on as well where, let's say you want the top of this to be kind of like blue. You need to color the inside, basically. So, where did my color go? Sorry, very messy. I lost the color I was using. So they might want to keep that around. It's a good tip. If this is the color of my crane, which is kind of blue, and I want blue to show up next to this darker area, you kind of have to color both sides, is the tip. So if you're doing more complex things, have them color in. If you remember, there might have been other ones we did kind of like this, like the Northwest Native Art or whatever, but you might need to add color on both sides. So I'll show what that kind of looks like. I guess a good example would be around this eye, for instance. If I don't do that, I'm not going to get enough of the blue color in the animal. Because that eye will just disappear when I smear it with water. So see, then you can go up to the edge and you can pull that blue down. Sorry, I'm not in the center of the screen. You can pull that blue down from that edge. Whereas if I didn't have that, you'd just get that color, that gray color in it. And you can see that's what happens here. So you kind of want, if you want there to be definition, you have to add it and use that. And then a new color for this one. You see that color kind of washed out entirely. So this is the other tip, is that if you want the definition, you do have to just be patient. So you have to like do this, take a little bit and brush it up in each one. If you just smear, you saw that it erased all that detail. But then if you draw it in and you kind of are more careful with pulling the paint out, there's a little bit of it there, more definition. And then a tip for drawing the outside, let's just say I want the outside of this to be kind of like orange, pink color. That's again, you can't just do, you can do this to do the outside edge, of course, to kind of frame it. But if you want it to really be filled in all the way, you do have to outline the animal. And I'm doing it messy because I'm going to show how it pulls in. So then you take one of these and you pull that, oops, that had green on it. Pull that in. And that's really the only way to get the color across the whole thing. I mean, you can color in the entire background. This is not very much pigment. Okay. Yeah, so if they run out of time, I don't think they run out of time. If they'll probably be done early. If they're done early, they can do, again, another one. We'll have plenty, or they can do it the back of the fan. If they haven't got their name on there. And then you can always keep adding. So you can add things to this too. Maybe there's like a pond. Maybe there are clouds. So keep having them add lots of detail. The Minhwa art, some of it is very simple and some of it is very detailed. So that is part of the thing. Yep, and that's it. Cleaning up, just put all the pencils back, sharpen any that broke if you have the time. Please make sure the sharpeners and stuff make their way back in. Toss, of course, all of the Q-tips and then empty the water. And then once you assemble these, of course, put them on we'll probably just have a bin, and we won't need a drying rack, I'm guessing, because hopefully these have dried fast enough. But if these are all assembled, it should be pretty simple to just throw them on in the bin on the top of the art cart. But it's important you have names and teachers so that if there's a class right after yours, they're not mixed up. Yep, there you go. Thank you so much. See you in the classroom.